I watched a Philly live stream a few days ago, and that gave me an idea to make a video about name translation and translation of character names in particular. Of course, some languages have sounds which has no analogs in other languages, so in some occasions you just have no possibility to translate name to other language and keep them sounds exactly as it was in original. But talking about name translations, there are some other moments which affects on the result. At first, I want to mention moments when you don't translate directly from one language to another, but you use a translation to different third language to translate to your native. Also, I want to mention traditions in translations, which in some moments goes very close with the first moment. So, for example, in medieval time and later, the main international language was Latin. So, a lot of documents, most of documents and names translate not directly from one language to another, but from language to Latin and then to other language. So it's obviously affects on how name sounds in different language. And as example, I want to mention names of real historical persons. So French kings, with name Louis, in Russian sounds like Ludovic. It happened at first because the names was translated to Latin, where they sounds like Ludovicus, but in the beginning of 18th century, German was like kind of international language for Russia, so a lot of Latin names was changed on a German manner. So Ludovicus transformed to Ludovic. The same thing happened with the name Henri, which sounds in Russian like Gendrich. Of course, modern names of modern people translates like Louis and Henri, but if we took this time periods and these real historical persons, their names translate using this translating tradition. Also, talking about Harry Potter, which was the reason why we started this discussion about name translation. Hermione's name was originally from ancient Greek, if I'm not mistaken, and so it was translated a long time ago to Russian, and it was translated differently in using other translating traditions different from the nowadays. So actually Hermione's name in Russian sounds like Germiona, and especially this moment very confused me when I at first hear how Hermione's name sounds in the original in English, because I read it in Russian and I don't even think about how this name sounds in the original. So I remember that once on an English lesson our teacher turned on a part from audio book from the first part of Harry Potter, and nobody in the class understood that it was from Harry Potter. Nobody knows that how Hermione's name pronounced in English, and nobody understood it. Understood that it was from Harry Potter, but everyone read Harry Potter. Another good example of these translations from language to language was the moment when translator don't know the original language of the particular name or surname, which is used in book in different language. moving back to Harry Potter, Seamus Finnegan. He is Irish, so his name doesn't pronounce as it would pronounce if it was English name. In one of the Russian translations of Harry Potter, the most famous one, translators forgot that he is Irish, or they doesn't know that it should be translated in different ways in English names. So in this translation, Seamus' name became Seamus. But there are some other translations in which his name sounds like Seamus or Seamus, but the most famous version is Seamus, and for example on Harry Potter wiki this version used. Moving back to traditions in translation, earlier a lot of translators don't use translation of the don't use in the translation how the name sounds, but how it writes. So nowadays translators usually use pronunciation of the name, but if we're talking about old names of people, for example, who lives in 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, their names probably would translate it using this old tradition of transliteration. For example, scientist Isaac Newton. In Russian, his name sounds like Isaac, so it's transliteration, symbol by symbol of his name. And actually, in the 17th, 18th century, his surname also transliterated and sounds like Newton. But nowadays, it names Isaac Newton. But the writer Isaac Asimov. But if we talk about writer Isaac Asimov, his name sounds in Russian like Isaac, because it's a modern name, it's translated in a modern way. Also, if you take name Charles, it's translated like Charles if it's modern name, but if we're talking about kings of the Stuart dynasty, it would translate it like Karl. Also, I can remind a famous character from Arthur Conan Doyle book, Dr. Watson, which surname actually sounds in Russian like Watson, because it was transliterated, and it's usually traditionally writes like that. Some of the people use translation of Watson, but the other interesting problem of translations is when translator want to make an adaptation of a surname or nickname if this word has particular meaning. If translator writes this name just like it sounds, it will lose this meaning for the reader who don't know the original language. So sometimes translators try to translate the meaning, or if this name or nickname made from combining the word or something like that, they try to divide it in the parts and translate them separately, then put together again. And sometimes it doesn't happen very great. Moving back to Harry Potter, you probably may don't know, but there are 3 different translations of Harry Potter from English to Russian. The most famous one published by Rossmann. Also, translation of the Spivak is very famous, but it's famous because it's very ugly. And this translation was published by Azbuka publisher, if I don't mistake, and there is one more amateur translation. So, In Spivak translation, she tried to actually translate surnames, trying to save the meaning of the parts of the word, but I will not make examples because I don't remember everything, but it's not the best translations. But as example, I could remind a character from cartoon Miraculous Ladybug. So Chat he was translated to English like Cat Noir, but for no reason in Russian he was translated like Super Kot. So translated back to English, it's like Super Cat. Why is translator changed the meaning of the name? I don't know. But because of that, in some fanfiction and fandom articles, a lot of people discussing how to name him correctly, and a lot of people use version Code Noir, like in English, basically. So translating word cat but not translating word black. Also, one of the most awful examples I remember from cartoon called Lyoko. It has official translation of the first, second, and fifth season, and there are one amateur translation of the prequel. One of main characters has name Odd, and it's not a nickname or something like that, it's his actual name. But in this prequel, translators decide to not save it like it sounds, like it's just a name. They try to translate it, and they named them Chudik. So actually, this doesn't sound like a name at all. It sounds like very offensive nickname. But thanks God, in official translations, they save his name and name him Odd. I don't know how to finish this video, so